So this right here is NeuralCam, or as I referred to it throughout my entire video testing it a couple of months back, NeuralCam. I still can't believe that I referred to that for the entire video and only noticed when somebody pointed it out in the comments. So if you don't know what this app does, it essentially brings night mode to the iPhone XS and older. I think it goes down to the iPhone 6, which is a pretty impressive range actually. In my testing video that I did a little while back, I did find that it didn't work too well on the older iPhones. I tested it on the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 10. As I said, on the iPhone 10, it didn't work too well. However, on the iPhone 10, it worked really well. I tested it in all kinds of situations, and in most of them, it performed really well. It brightened up the image, it cleaned up the shadows, and all in all, I think it's a really good low light photography app. It is paid for at, I think, around $5, but in my opinion, totally worth it. However, recently I've had the chance to try out the actual night mode, the one introduced on the iPhone 11, and so I thought, what if we tried them out side by side? In these tests, I want to see how bright the image is, does it look natural or does it look processed? Because ideally, we do want natural, and I did find that NeuralCam did look a little bit processed. I also want to see which one has better dynamic range, and all in all, I want to check out how well each one of these apps performs. Alright, so let's check it out. So for NeuralCam, we will again be using the iPhone 10. I think it worked really well last time. Also, I realized I said 6 instead of 6S in the last segment. Yeah, the older iPhone I tested it on last time was the iPhone 6S. And for the night mode iPhone, we're going to be using the iPhone 11. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that later on. All right, let's go take some photos. But first, I think we should probably wait for it to get dark. Okay, so this is going to be the first shot. General low light shot with a door at the end of this. Now, this will generally test the low light abilities, as well as seeing how it deals with the processing. How this is going to work is we're going to take close to identical photos of each subject. Then I'm going to play them in a slideshow. After the tests are played through, there will be a poll in the corner. I want you guys to vote on which one you think is which. And then we're going to discuss the results. Here we have it. iPhone 11. All right, next up we have this extreme low light test. All right, so let's see if this can pick up anything. All right, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a significant difference with this one. All right, so now we're gonna try it with the iPhone 11. One thing I do like about this night mode app is that you actually get the manual control, so you can actually set your shutter speed to be longer, so you, in theory, get a cleaner image. Alright, so next up we have this situation. Now this is going to be our dynamic range test. So we got a dark environment here. Oh, I hate the autofocus on this camera. And then we got a moderately bright room here. Okay, so it turns out on the iPhone 11 I can't actually set night mode in that direction. So we're going to adjust the angle accordingly. Alright, let's repeat that on the iPhone 10 with NeuralCam. Alright, so the final test we're going to do is going to be a skin tone test. We're going to take a photo on each one of these phones in reasonable low light, and we're going to see how each one does. Alright, let's go take a look. So if you haven't already cast your vote, pause the video now, go vote up there, and in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so if you haven't worked it out already, camera A was NeuralCam and camera B was the iPhone 11. Honestly, I was pretty impressed with both. However, I do think there are some key differences, and we're going to be breaking down each image individually and talking about the strengths and weaknesses of each. All right, so first of all, we have the general low light test. Just pulling these up on my computer now because I didn't do that earlier. I decided to do it while I'm recording this. Okay, so the first photo we took was the general low light test. And on the iPhone 11 with the night mode, I kind of think that it looks a bit more natural. It's a lot less saturated. It does look less processed, and that light at the end doesn't clip. I also think that there's less banding, but in this example, I think both cameras do pretty well. This was a very dark hallway as we saw on this camera. I mean, it is a GH5, but so yeah, both brightened it up. There's an acceptable amount of noise on both, and overall, I don't really have a problem with either. However, next we move on to the more extreme low light test. Now, to be honest, neither of them did all that well in this case. Both were still very dark, but here I think is where we see NeuralCam fall apart a bit. It didn't particularly grab focus all that well. I'm struggling to see the image as it is on my laptop. It just looks very smooth. And while not much better, and certainly not what I would call usable, I do think the iPhone 11 did a better job in the extreme low light test. I can still sort of make out the structure of the door and the lamp, whereas with NeuralCam, it is just, well, it's a bit of a mess. Now, I wouldn't really expect much better from either, to be honest. This was a very, very dark environment. This camera could barely display anything. I had to crank that ISO, set the shutter speed to like 1/25th. Not a good experience. Again, it's a similar case with this one. While both are unusable, I do still think the iPhone 11 did do a little bit better. And next up, we have the dynamic range test. Now, this is an area where I had some complaints in my initial NeuralCam video, and even in general photography, I do think the iPhone 11 has significantly better dynamic range, or at least appears to have more anyway, than the iPhone 10. Here, it's as evident as ever, the iPhone 11 is certainly much nicer balanced, whereas the iPhone 10 with NeuralCam just looks like a shitty low-budget Star Trek. Seriously, what is going on with that lens flare? I also don't think that it helps that NeuralCam does tend to over-sharpen, and while there is now an option to turn that down, you do lose a significant amount of brightness when you do. As for these tests, I personally left both in auto mode, and so yeah, I can see a good amount of over-sharpening there. And finally, we have the skin tone test. As for skin tones, I think both do an excellent job here, and while they certainly don't look as good as they would in a properly lit environment, honestly, I don't think it's that bad. Here, I honestly can't see too much of a difference. There isn't like any crazy color cast on one. And yeah, overall with skin tones, I think both do a pretty good job. Okay, so from these tests, we can clearly see that the iPhone 11 is the winner. But I mean, before we even ran those tests, that was probably gonna be obvious. After all, NeuralCam is a third-party app on like a 2.5-year-old iPhone. I wasn't expecting the iPhone 10 and NeuralCam to work better. I think some change just fell out of my pocket. Another good thing about this NeuralCam iPhone 10 setup is that it's a lot cheaper. I think NeuralCam's like $5. It's £5 on the British App Store. And I think you can get an iPhone 10 for like $380 refurbished nowadays. And yeah, all in all, that's going to be a pretty good value setup. You also get some pretty good customization with NeuralCam. I mean, manual focus, which works very well, and of course, night mode being available on the 2x zoom. However, with the iPhone 11, the image is overall cleaner, and a lot of the complaints I had initially about the NeuralCam images have been resolved on the iPhone 11. It doesn't look over-sharpened or over-processed, and I do think I would have enough flexibility here to do some work in post. All right, so here's a color grade I managed to pull out of one of the night mode images. And while I know this isn't like a spectacular photo, I think if you want to do post work with the iPhone 10, you do generally need to have better lighting. But with these iPhone 11 night mode images, we do tend to have a little bit more leeway. I also, as I said before, think the post-processing done to the images to reduce the noise does render the image looking a bit nicer with the iPhone 11. I personally think that with NeuralCam, the sharp areas do look a little bit too sharp, and vice versa with those smooth areas. So yeah, in conclusion, the software developed by Apple to work with an Apple product released last year is better than the third-party app with the 2.5-year-old iPhone. I mean, obviously that was going to be the case. This wasn't the point of the video. The point is, you can still get some low-light photography done if you have an older iPhone. And I wanted to prove you don't need to immediately upgrade your old iPhone just for some low-light photography. Chances are there are options for your existing device. That said, I am very impressed with the iPhone 11, much more than I thought I would be. And this is leading me on to the second part of the video. Spec sheets aren't always the best representation of how good a product is going to be. It's the classic case of the EOS R. When the iPhone 11 was released, I didn't think it was going to be all that good. I still thought the iPhone 10 may be the better budget option. It's got a higher resolution screen, and I personally do prefer the telephoto option to that wide angle lens. However, after seeing, first of all, how good that screen looks, as well as how well the camera works, I forgot that it's not all about numbers. And yeah, in the time I've been testing the iPhone 11, this has just become more and more apparent. As I said, I often relate this back to the EOS R. For those of you watching this who don't like cameras, it had a terrible spec sheet. Everything was very lackluster, massive crop in 4K, no IBIS, not that many slow motion options, but when it was released, the image from that thing, stunning. So yeah, spec sheets aren't always the best representation of how good a product is gonna be. As I said before, in the time I've been testing out the iPhone 11, this has become more and more apparent, and yeah, the iPhone 11 is certainly proving to be an interesting phone. Review will be out soon. So yeah, back on topic, does the iPhone 11 take phenomenal low light photos? Yes. That's kind of dark. Why is it so dark? Damn, exposure. Sorry about that. I just had to adjust the exposure. For some reason, it had gone really dark. Oh, see, this is what happens. I always end up like recording a video and then the sun goes down. This is not a practical backdrop. I personally like the way it looks with all the greenery in the background. Seriously, not very practical. So yeah, if you're currently on something like an iPhone 6s, are looking to upgrade, and you really want some great low light photography, then the iPhone 11 should definitely be considered. However, If you have something like this, and you do want to take some low light photography, but you don't fancy selling this and then spending a bonus $300-400 on an iPhone 11, with the help of third-party apps, you can get some pretty great results with the phone that you have. All right, so that's just about going to do it for today. As I said before, the iPhone 11 review will be out very soon. If you either follow me on Twitter or read my community posts, then you may have seen that I accidentally corrupted my Mac hard drive. All right, I've been doing this literally all day. Finally got somewhere. I finally found out the issue, managed to fix it in the terminal, and now I am reinstalling my operating system. I think in total that probably took about 6 hours. This time I am using Time Machine. All right, so we're here. I have to reinstall macOS Catalina because this is the 2017 model. So as stock, it comes with macOS High Sierra. After this, I gotta reinstall everything else, and then I'll be ready to make videos again. This could take a while though. Lost a ton of footage, so I am still in the process of getting a lot of that back. That said, the iPhone 11 review will be out fairly soon, so be sure to stick around for that. Also, let me know if you want to see a full iPhone photo shoot with the iPhone 11. I personally love making this iPhone photography videos. I think they're super fun, and so yeah, let me know if you want to see something like that. As for now, as always, thank you for watching. Remember to like the video if you want to see more content like this, and smash that subscribe button. I'm done for now, and I will see you guys in the next one.